Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. My name is Reed. Along with me, as always, is Mike. Mike, we've been talking a lot of comic book movies this week. You and I had some different thoughts on the Peacemaker TV show and as a follow-up to Superman, and it kind of just got us thinking about the larger approach to superhero movies. In that, for so long, we were used to the linear approach of sequential storytelling for superhero films with the MCU, even DCU's failed universe. But it does appear with box office receipts, reception to these movies, maybe you can call it superhero fatigue, bad movie, whatever thing you want to say. It appears that that era has ended. And so James Gunn seems to be doing something kind of interesting here in that you've got drastically different tones in terms of Superman and Peacemaker, even though there's some character crossover. You've got stuff like a horror movie coming out with Clayface that's going to be a really low budget kind of horror film that's going to come out. You've got Matt Reeves as the Batman, which at this point looks like it's going to come out in 2057, but it is set in its own universe. Do you think this idea of non-sequential kind of storytelling where it's just hitting different niches and creating products that are aimed at different audiences, do you think that's actually the future for superhero films?
I think so. I think we've reached the apex of the crossover extravaganza. And by the way, I think we've passed that apex as well in the comic books. And so now it's a money thing. We can't, we can't do these huge blockbusters that come out every 4 months anymore, and tying them together and grabbing new superheroes and trying to shoehorn them into the plot matrix and make it work. I mean, it just kind of fizzled out. And the same thing goes with the comics too. These grandiose crossover events where you got to buy 20 comics or watch 20 movies. That era has passed. That was the golden age of comic book movies. And now we're in the silver age of comic book movies. And just like how the silver age happened in the showcase titles for DC, they tepidly, tried a couple of superheroes out one at a time. They waited 4 years between, Flash's first, reboot in Showcase number 4 before he actually got his own title. And I think the movies are going to kind of follow that trend. It's just a financial thing. The studios can't invest all that much money in for projects that aren't going to go through. So you're going to try out one movie at a time. If it makes a profit, maybe a couple years we'll do another one. And we've been talking about this all along, Reed. Like, just focus on the one movie, make one good movie, focus on the comic book, make one good comic. And then if it lightning strikes again, maybe they'll do a multiverse thing. But you know, that heyday has passed. We're in a different era of comic book movies now.
Yeah, I think, as DC fans, we probably feel a little slighted that we didn't get our version of the MCU that worked.
They
And
tried.
they tried, it didn't work for a lot of reasons. But I think we're not going to get that movie where Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman and a million DC heroes rush and fight Darkseid. And the reason we're not going to get that is I think the audience will easily go like, "This is just a rip off of Endgame. What are we doing?" And I think that's where James Gunn might be onto something. And I think, while I'm not a fan of Peacemaker, I know there are fans of that show that are folks who probably would never watch a superhero movie but love that TV series, or will not be the people in theaters watching, the next sequel to Superman. But like, hey, if there's another Peacemaker season, they're all over it. And I think where he's probably got a good idea here is we used to have the comic book movies were so successful that you could compromise the artistic vision of things for the shared universe, and it worked. A good example of this is, Edgar Wright, who's a really good filmmaker. Makes great movies. Wanted to make an Ant-Man movie, and Marvel fired him from that, or largely had him part from that, because even though he's a talented filmmaker, it didn't fit their shared universe. Now that worked in whatever was it, 2016 or whenever that movie came out, because Marvel was rolling at the time. You probably can't make that sacrifice anymore. You can't have where, hey, we'll make the lesser movie for the fit of the shared universe. And it largely it just doesn't seem to interest folks anymore. You can call that multiversal fatigue or event fatigue or whatever it is. But as you pointed out, it's the same thing in the comic books, right? I think audiences are a little more discerning with their dollar now. They're a little more discerning with their time. And just like, you and I have been talking X-Men a lot. When an X-Men event book comes out, it's not even the quality of it that makes us disinterested at times. It's the fact that they announce that it's going to be 20 different books. And it's like, look, even if it's great, it's not going to be $100 great. And once you tell me there's 20 pieces I need to get, it's even hard for me to say I'm going to invest in three or four of them because I know I'm not getting 80% of the picture. And so hopefully Gunn can keep doing what he's doing as far as, Peacemaker
Yeah.
for what it is seems to be what people who like that kind of show want it to be.
And
Superman was the kind of movie that audience liked. And hopefully with other projects, if Clayface ends up being a fantastic horror movie that pleases a horror audience, you may have different inroads that you can make that'll get it to be successful.
I think the same thing is in store for the TV shows as well. You know, Marvel tried to famously connect them all, and that didn't really work. And DC tried a few too that were sort of connected, whatever.
Hmm.
But you know, you might have these great projects, these one-off projects like Daredevil for DC, like Swamp Thing or for Marvel and Swamp Thing for DC. And of course, you know, there's the Doom Patrol, which is kind of like on the Peacemaker line. Like maybe they could do a 1-2 punch with Doom Patrol and Peacemaker for TV, and you know, then we'll get our Superman, and maybe in 2057 we'll get Batman again. But where the wind is going to blow is with those big heroes, and you know, once every few years, Spider-Man will have another movie, of course. Batman will, you know,
Yeah,
but
your big guys, your Batman, your Superman, your
yeah,
Spider-Man, Wolverine may be an established enough brand that
um,
could do that. But yeah, I think the idea of having Marvel probably needs to, after this Doomsday event or Secret Wars, just focus on making a good X-Men movie. Don't worry about the X-Men Fantastic Four crossover that features Spider-Man. Just make a good X-Men film, and then there might be an X-Men sequel. And I
yeah.
think that's what is funny is that is kind of how these started to be successful. I don't know even if you make 10 or 12 good superhero movies in a row that we're ever going to get back to, as you said, that apex where
Mm.
everything is what it is. The same way the comic book markets, it's never going to get back to selling a million copies an issue the way that it was back in the heyday with books like, Captain Marvel and stuff like that. But you can find success. You just need to dedicate towards certain projects. And hopefully James Gunn does seem to be doing it. Hopefully that continues for DC. I do like the fact that there doesn't seem to be a bunch of announced projects that like are promised without scripts. He seems to be very focused on let's make sure the script is done and it's good before we start. And so hopefully we end up getting that. But let us know. Let us know your thoughts down below. What do you think for superhero movies? Do you think the whole connected universe era is done? Do you think focusing on niches like James Gunn is doing, where you have very different audiences that are being approached is the future, or do you think maybe just the whole genre is going to fall apart no matter what they do? Whether you agree with us or disagree with us, folks, we always enjoy seeing your thoughts down below. Thank you, as always, for watching. God bless you.
Thanks, everybody.